Hey, what's going on? Sickbit here, aka Meek, coming at you with another Draft League Presents. Today we're going to be talking about Gallade Mega and why it's a mon that I've really underestimated at the very beginning of the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and kind of has moved into a top tier threat towards the end of the game, and now in Gen 8 is now a top tier mon. Well, it was top tier mon in Gen 7 towards the end, but people really started respecting it and drafting it really often. And we'll go over why it's drafted so highly, and now in leagues that allow megas, they're in this Gen 8 era, why these mons are so sought after, or why this mon is so sought after. I actually just started a new league that I'll be using this guy again to kind of test out his new move that he gets, and then a couple of different sets that I didn't run when I used him last. But when I used him last, he always got me 2 kills. Every single match, he'd always get me 2 kills. And maybe that was because a lot of the time he was kind of either the cleaner or the setup option. It was very rare that he was like a... actually, I don't think I ever used him as a guarantee, or my dedicated lead, because he has taunt. He's got a couple of those things, but we'll talk about that. I think where this mon should go, it's in that top 10 area. When you're looking at if Mawwile's there, maybe it drops to 11. And if Gmaxes are there, then it probably drops to about 20 or so, maybe 15. But as far as a Mega Pokemon, it is a top 10. I mean, it's top 3, top 4 Megas right now. And at the end of Ultra Sun and Moon, it was definitely a top tier Mega, top 4, top 5 pick, in my opinion. So let's get into the reasons why it should be drafted so highly. I'm using the WPF Season 6 Master Copy, so that's why this is a little different than the XDL, but this is a little bit better in terms of kind of what you can see, where all the mons are stacked, and where they a little bit better. The Tier 1A is a little bit better in terms of deciding who's actually the top tier threats and then who's like the secondary threats, which I don't really think that Zeraora is a top tier threat, but that's just my opinion. I mean, there's everybody's draft league list is different, and you can battle me a whole bunch of different ways because he's able to check, high tier threats like Dragapult and different things like that that other mons can't do. But regardless, so we'll move on here. So we're going to be using the Sun and Moon portion for a little bit, just so that we can look at the stats of this guy, and then we'll move on to Sword and Shield to kind of clarify what has moved him past, even through Gen 8, why he's so good. So first things first is looks great. I love the way that he looks. This guy didn't look so great. We could talk about him a little bit, though. We're not going to mess with the stats too much. Great special defense. We keep that special defense a little bit. But the big thing here is justified. And the ability to switch into those knockoff hits, not take too much damage because you have a Mega Evolution Stone, and take that justified hit, get +1 Mega Evolve, and now that 165 +1 stage is now really going to hit you really, really hard. So with it's got 2 resists, which not are super common typings, but they're very, very offensive typings, fighting and rock. And usually, even if a fighting or a rock type move is neutral, it's usually a really spammable move anyway. So it's great that he may not be able to switch into these things if he's not Mega Evolved, or even if he is Mega Evolved, it may be not in his best interest, but he's able to resist them and kind of bulk up or Swords Dance in front of that thing and then blow it back. So I think the typing's interesting. Weak to Fairy, Flying, and Ghost. Flying spam isn't too common now. Ghost types are really common in the metagame, especially, they've really picked up with the likes of Dragapult, and Aegislash now is with his nerf is starting to get allowed again. And then fairies, there's quite a few fairies still running around, and good teams will have strong fairies. That's what's going to happen. They're going to have strong fairies, so you do need to be kind of wary of that. You can see that it's a fighting type that's not weak to psychic. It's neutral because of this second psychic typing. So that's interesting, and it's also not weak to dark, even though it's a psychic mon because of the fighting typing. So I think that's pretty interesting for a Mega. It's kind of like Medicham, except this guy can actually take a little bit more hits than the Medicham, because Medicham's what, 60, 80, 80. This guy's 68, 95, 115. Those are huge stat buffs. Now, we do lose about 35 attack points when you trade off huge power Mega Medicham and Mega-Gallade. But I think what this guy is able to do is set up a lot better, because Medicham's not really able to set up that well. It does get Power Punch, but this guy gets Swords Dance. He gets his bulk up set, and he's able to even sub bulk up if it's a tanky team. And I think these stats really speak for themselves. 165 attack is nothing to scoff at. I mean, that's 5 short of Kieran Black's attack. So that's a really special stat right there, I think. And the fact that he gets above 100 and he gets to 110, making him a really reliable sweeper, in my opinion. He doesn't have anything to boost his speed necessarily, but he is able to get to that 350 speed and kind of hover over a lot of those 100 base speed tiers. 115's great. That's a great special defense stat. Paired with that 68, a little bit investment into that HP, and you're able to tank a lot of special hits, especially if you want to get a bulk up set in. Tank or 248 or so, and a couple in special defense, run the rest in speed or whatever you need to hit, and then put a little bit into attack. You don't need very much for that 165 plus a boost from either a Swords Dance or a bulk up to really sweep teams. And that 95 defense is really respectable, especially with a bulk up set. It can really get boosted really well. Inner Focus, it can't be flinched, so that could be really nice for maybe some Dark Pulse spam teams or different things like that. Maybe fake out from Lopunny, but you're really not going to be faking this guy out a lot of the time. Anyway, trying to think of anything that's spammable. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. We'll get into some common sets here. So, see, I wouldn't even run this 252 attack with a Swords Dance. I'm gonna run 252 HP, and I'm gonna live it. I'm gonna live whatever I need to get that Swords Dance off. And if I don't need to because they're switching out, I mean, it can go either way depending on the matchup. But this is a great set. It gets CC instead of high jump kick, so it doesn't have to worry about the accuracy. And taking that damage. Zen's great, and then knockoff for those bulky psychics, right? And you're hitting everything. I mean, there's nothing that's going to switch into this. Ghosts die, psychics die, after Swords Dance probably. Poisons die here. Anything really. These two coverages really hit everything except for those bulky psychics. So that could be interesting. Maybe fairies too, actually. But Zen usually does a lot of work after a +2. So let's get into the moves here. I only had one set, but another set that I want to bring up is the bulk up set. So instead of Swords Dance, you're going to have bulk up here, and instead of 252 attack, usually you're going to have a lot of HP, and you're able to take a lot of hits and get your bulk up going, then you can't lose. After you have a Drain Punch. Drain Punch is really nice for this set Drain Punch is good for both of these sets really. Swords Dance and bulk up. To gain HP back and to kind of like keep bumping up. It's like a bulky psychic using Recover and Calm Mind or something like that. So Aerial Ace is okay. 165 attack is going to make that really strong for Flying Stab. Let's see here. Body Slam's okay. Brick Break for breaking screens. There's your bulk up here. This is really, really good. Really, really good. Especially if if you bring this in on something that's scared of you. Really, really good. Close combat's great. Charm can be okay. It's a heat set if you're bringing Charm. I mean, it might be Charm bulk up. I could see that maybe. You're able to go with 65 special attack. You might not be hitting really that hard, but you do get some fairy moves with Dazzling Gleam. Let's say you got a Hydra Region or something, maybe a Scrafty that you're going up against, and you want to kind of hit him with a Dazzling Gleam. I could see some kind of merit maybe there. Sub-Disable is also an interesting one. That can be really, really powerful. Let's say you got a team that wants to, it's got a bunch of pivots or something like that. You sub up, wait for that pivot to come in. It tries to do something to you. You disable that. You sub back up. You win the game. However you, with whatever coverage moves or setup that you need. So that could be really interesting. Let's see your double edge for hitting those bulky psychics. If let's say it's a bulky psychic that is resistant to knockoff because it's running a Z crystal or something like that, and you expect it to run that Z crystal, double edge is there for you. You will take a lot of recoil, but it's pretty good. Here's Drain Punch for not so great recovery, but it does do a lot of damage. And it does do a good amount of damage, and if you have a bulk up or a Swords Dance, that could sweep a team and make you unkillable, really. Here's your Dragon move. It's an 80 base power, dual chop. That's okay. It gets Earthquake, gets Encore, Encore is an interesting one because you can bring this in on something that you're faster than and just make it use whatever it did last time for 3 turns. So that could be really good. Especially if it's not a heavy hitter, but it has a coverage move for you or something like that. You can definitely do that. Let's see here. Grass Knot, special again. Headbutt's okay. Maybe not okay, but okay. Let's see here. Gets Hypnosis. It's a 60% chance. It used to be 50. Now it's 60. So that's kind of a buff, I guess. Gets Ice Punch here. Did we get Fire Punch? We did get Fire Punch. I skipped over that. Here we go again. Knockoff. It gets Imprison if you're facing something that you're kind of aware that's going to use something that you already have. He's got a lot of moves, so that could be an interesting one. Knockoff's huge. Leaf Blade's really good for your grass coverage. Seismitoad, Swampert, those kind of guys. Low Kick can be interesting for like maybe a Mega-Aggron or something like that. It gets the screens also. It's kind of an interesting move pool because it gets those moves from the Ralts Curlia line. So it gets that Dazzling Gleam. It gets those screens. It gets some interesting moves that usually fighting types really don't get too often. Gets Magic Coat. It gets there's that dedicated lead again that I was talking about. Magic Coat's an interesting one. Magic Roux, we're not messing with that too much. Maybe lock in something here with Mean Look. Memento could be interesting for some setup. I would stay away from it for the most part, unless you really need a win and this team, you have a mon on your team that just needs one chance to get through. You use Memento and you get that mon in, and then you blow whatever you need to. Pain Split's an interesting one for walls. Like a sub Pain Split set can really break down some fat, some heavier or some tankier targets. Poison Jab's great for the fairies. No fairy really wants to take this Poison Jab. This is a really, really strong Poison Jab. Kills Clefable unless it's super defensive and you're not running a bunch of attack. Power Punch I'd stay away from, in my opinion. Protect is okay. There's your Psycho coverage, and there's your Psychic coverage. But more importantly, here's 100% accurate Psychic physical move with a high critical hit ratio. That can get a lot of crits and make your opponent rage at the same time. Let's see here. Returns, an interesting one if your league allows it. Rock Slide's really good here, but it gets Stone Edge, so it's a little bit better. Safeguard. It gets Sneak. I totally forgot about Shadow Sneak. I should have talked about this earlier because this is a very important move. Gets priority physically. That's super important, okay? So you're running that Swords Dance. Let's say all you need to do, all the other mons on the team are weakened, right? You bring this guy in, you Swords Dance once, and then you just sneak. It's not stab, but it's very strong after a Swords Dance, okay? And if you're invested, get Sing. You're gonna want to run Hypnosis though because it's 5% more accurate. Let's see here. Stone Edge again. There it is. Stored Power's okay with Bulk Up, I guess. Swords Dance right there. Synchronoise. You're not gonna use Taunt's an interesting move. Stopping tanks, Toxapexes, different things, Ferrothorns maybe. That want to switch in maybe. And it gets Thunder Punch here. Thunder Wave is interesting. Torment can be nice. Trick gets trick. Oh, you're not gonna be tricking that actually. Not Trick Room. Vacuum Wave for your special. Not gonna use it though. Willow's an interesting one. It gets Wish. X Scissor for the psychic types also, if you don't want to run knockoff, or if they're holding a Z crystal or something like that. And then finally Zen, which is that's a bread and butter move. Real quick, we want to go to the Sword and Shield to kind of go over one move that it gets that's not in the other, and that is Triple Axle, which is an interesting move. Really, it's 120 base power, but it checks accuracy each time that it hits. So it's 20 base power, then it's 40, then it's 60, and what that ends up happening, if you hit all of them, which it's 90%, 90%, 90% accurate every single time. And if you hit all of them, it's 120 base power ice type attack. If you hit the first two, just 60 power. If you hit all three, that's when it gets to 120. And that's a huge deal, because a lot of these, there's nothing really that wants to switch into a Sword Stance, Mega-Gallade, Max Attack, Triple Axle. That's a really tough hit. I mean, that in close combat really hit freaking hard. I wish that he had a stronger Psychic type move, but that typing might be broken if it got a stronger physical move. So that is it for the stats. What I think goes well with Gallade is I think a Steel type. Steel type's really good. That covers the fairy and flying for the most part. Ghost kind of tough with that. Bisharp's kind of nice. Bisharp, usually you want to put him on teams that like stack hazards and different things like that. But that's good for Gallade also, because he's got that priority Shadow Sneak. So I think if you can get maybe a Spike Setter or a Hazard Stacker, and then you can get maybe Bisharp and then this guy. Well, you have to get this guy first probably, because this guy goes really, really quick, and he does every single draft, and he should. If you got that, I mean, you would have a really good Mon, a really almost a guaranteed switch in with Bisharp, or any Dark and Steel, or kind of those kind of mixtures, maybe Poison Steel, something like that resists those Fairy Flying and Ghost type attacks. That would be a really good. I know Bisharp definitely resists all this guy's weaknesses, but things like that, Dark types, Steel types, something that could take probably a special hit. Ghosts for the most part, except if you're Mars Shadow, which is banned to Ubers, or Blade, are really, they're for the most part, it's going to be special. So, and these types are predominantly special, so it really plays off of why this Pokemon is so strong, because of that 115 defense and the way that you can boost and just take Pokemon out and just sweep the rest of the team. So I think that's really, really good. So Steel, Dark not so much because of the Fairy typing, but Bisharp's really good for it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to talk about. Great Wall Breaker, great Sweeper if need be. He's a lot different than Medicham, because they have the same typing. It's a lot different than Medicham because of that 10 speed, I think. The 10 speed and the defenses, they're super important. I mean, just very, very important that the difference is. This guy's a setup sweeper, essentially, a lot of the time. With Medicham, it's a little bit more difficult to set him up because he's kind of weak, and because he has so much usually raw power just on that first move. He doesn't need really to be set up. It's like more of an immediate offense kind of Pokemon. So that's what I would say is the difference. Just to quickly touch on that Medicham again, but I would rate this one, I mean, top 15 pick if there's G-Maxes, top 10, top 9 or 8 if Mawile's allowed. Really, really good mod. It always goes quick, and there's a good reason for it. And that's really it for me. We're going to have something special tomorrow. Nothing crazy, but something a little special, that a little bit different. So I'll see you tomorrow, and that's it from me, Sick Bid, aka Meek.